I noticed her before she ever spoke to me. The way her silhouette leaned in the window across from mine, one hand on the glass, the other loosely holding a coffee cup that had probably gone cold. She didn't wave, didn't smile. She just watched. And for reasons I couldn't explain, I let her. I was supposed to be studying, laptop open, a half-finished draft blinking at me. But every time I shifted in my chair, my eyes slid back to her window. She was older, much older than me, and carried herself like someone who didn't need to be seen, and yet she knew when she was. The first time our eyes met, it wasn't planned. I had looked up too quickly, caught her mid-movement, pushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. She froze, the tiniest hesitation. I should have looked away, but I didn't. Her gaze lingered, steady but not unkind. A question sat in it, maybe even a warning. My chest tightened with something I couldn't name. Later, I heard her footsteps in the hallway. Light, unhurried but certain. When she knocked, it was only 3 times, soft, like she already knew I'd answer. "Sorry," she said when I opened the door. Her voice was low, warm, not rushed. "The package they left at your door, it's mine." I handed it over, brushing her fingers by accident. The contact was nothing, barely a second. But the air shifted, sharp as the moment before a storm. Her eyes flicked down, then back up. She smiled, a small, practiced curve of her lips that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Thank you," she murmured. And then she stayed standing there, box in hand, not moving. I filled the silence too quickly. "It's fine. Happens all the time." My words sounded clumsy, younger than I wanted them to. She tilted her head, studying me. The kind of look that made me feel like she was measuring the space between us, not in steps, but in years. And yet, she didn't step back. I caught the faint scent of her perfume, something subtle, like jasmine after rain. She shifted the box against her hip, fingers tightening just slightly on the cardboard. Her body leaned in before she seemed to notice, pulling back half a breath later. I should have let her leave. Closed the door, gone back to my unfinished draft. But when she turned, I asked, "Do you want me to carry that for you?" Her pause was too long for such a simple offer. She looked over her shoulder, lips parting like she almost said no, then changing her mind. "If you don't mind," she said finally. In her apartment, the light was dimmer, curtains half drawn. Books stacked on the table, a half-finished glass of wine near the sink. It felt lived in, but guarded, a place that didn't invite strangers easily. She set the box down, exhaling like she'd been holding her breath. Then, softer than I expected, she asked, "Do you always work so late by your window?" Her question hung there, bare pretense. My throat tightened. I managed a smile. "Only when someone's watching." Her eyes held mine too long. She didn't laugh, didn't correct me. Instead, she stepped closer, just enough that the space between us felt fragile, dangerous. And then, before I could say anything else, she reached past me, pulled the curtain fully closed, and the room fell into a different kind of quiet. The curtain's fabric fell heavy, muffling the city lights. For a moment, I wasn't sure if I was supposed to leave or stay. She didn't tell me either way, just moved past me, her arm brushing lightly against mine, as though by accident. She set her glass of wine back on the counter. "You're in school, right?" she asked, not looking at me this time. "Graduated last year," I said, my voice catching a little, trying to figure out what's next. She nodded, running a fingertip along the rim of her glass. "That part never really ends." Something in her tone was softer now, not distant, but threaded with an exhaustion I recognized. I wondered if anyone else ever got to hear that part of her. She leaned back against the counter, crossing her arms. Her blouse shifted, opening just enough at the collar that my eyes lingered longer than they should have. I forced myself to look away, focusing instead on the books stacked nearby. "You read a lot," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Mostly to fall asleep," she replied. Her lips tilted into a half-smile. "It doesn't always work." There was a silence after that, not empty, but waiting. I wanted to ask about her life, who she was when the curtain stayed open, who she came home to, but something in her posture stopped me. She was giving me pieces, not the whole picture, and I felt greedy for wanting more. Then, almost as if she caught the thought in me, she said quietly, "I used to be married." Her eyes stayed fixed on the glass, her voice even. It didn't last. I didn't ask why. The weight of her silence filled in more than words could. She looked at me then, her gaze sharp but searching. And you? Someone waiting for you? I shook my head. No, just me. Her expression softened. Too quickly, like she hadn't meant it to show. That could be a good thing, she said. Sometimes. She brushed past me again, reaching for the box I carried in. Her hand lingered a second too long on my arm this time. Deliberate or not, I couldn't tell. My skin burned where she touched me. I caught her scent again, jasmine, warm and faint, and the kind of detail that would stick to me longer than I wanted it to. You should go, she said suddenly, though her voice lacked conviction. I hesitated, half a step toward the door, waiting for her to mean it. She didn't move, didn't open the way. Her arms were crossed again, but her body leaned forward just slightly, betraying the words. When I finally turned to leave, she reached out. Her fingers brushed my shoulder, stopping me without force, just enough to make me turn back. Her hand fell away slowly, as if she'd realized too late what she'd done. But her eyes didn't break from mine. Neither of us spoke. The silence between us said too much already. Her hand on my shoulder should have been nothing. A neighbor's casual touch, a thank you that lasted a second too long. But neither of us moved. Her breath slowed, so faint I could almost feel it against my neck. She was close, closer than made sense, and yet her eyes carried a question, not an answer. And then my phone buzzed in my pocket. The sound was small, but it shattered the stillness. I fumbled, pulling it out, screen lighting up with my best friend's name. She saw it too, the glow reflecting briefly across her face. You should answer, she said, voice low, but her hand slipped from my shoulder only after she spoke. I'll let the phone buzz until it stopped. It can wait, I murmured. Her eyes narrowed, not with judgment, but with something unreadable, like she was weighing the cost of being in this moment with me. She stepped back half a pace, but the retreat was fragile, as though she might undo it any second. I tried to steady my voice. We probably shouldn't be here like this, she finished for me. Her words were sharp, but her body didn't move farther away. I nodded, though my feet stayed planted. The air between us was crowded with things neither of us said. Age, loneliness, what people would think if they knew. She turned slightly, hand grazing the edge of the curtain. Her fingers gripped the fabric, twisting it absently, like she needed something to anchor herself. I shouldn't let myself, she stopped, biting off the words. A shadow crossed her face, regret mixing with something heavier. I took a step closer before I realized I had. You're not alone in this, I whispered. Her head tilted, eyes closing for half a second as though the words had landed somewhere she didn't want them to. When she opened them again, the distance between us had disappeared. My chest brushed hers when I breathed in. Her perfume wrapped around me, pulling me further than I meant to go. She looked at my mouth, then away. The hesitation tightened everything inside me. The possibility of a kiss, so near I could taste it. But she didn't lean in. Instead, she pressed her hand lightly against my chest, not pushing me back, but holding me still. Her palm rested there, steady, warm, her fingers curling slightly against the fabric of my shirt. You don't know what this could do, she said, her voice trembling despite her composure. I swallowed hard, my hand rising almost without thought, brushing her forearm in return. Then tell me to leave, I said quietly. Her lips parted, but no sound came. We stayed there, caught, suspended in a space where leaving was impossible and moving forward felt inevitable. And though the kiss didn't come, her hand remained on my chest, my fingers on her arm, binding us closer than either of us had meant. Her hand was still on my chest. My pulse beat against her palm, too fast, too loud. She must have felt it. You need to go, she whispered, but she didn't move her hand. I leaned closer, my voice low, unsteady. You don't want me to. Her eyes closed, lashes trembling like the words had struck too close. When she opened them again, they were darker, conflicted. You're too young, she said, barely audible. And I should know better. I shook my head. Then why aren't you stopping me? Her breath caught, sharp, and I realized I'd stepped into her space again, close enough that I could feel the heat of her body against mine. the faint brush of her blouse against my shirt. For a long, suspended second, neither of us moved. The only sound was the faint hum of the city outside, muffled by the closed curtain. Then she reached up, almost reluctantly, fingers grazing my jaw before brushing a strand of hair from my forehead. The touch was feather-light, but it undid me more than anything else she could have done. "You don't understand," she murmured. "People would talk. I don't care." I interrupted, too quickly, too certain. My voice dropped lower. "Do you?" Her lips parted like she wanted to say yes, but the word never came. Instead, her shoulders sagged, her defenses slipping for just a moment. She leaned against me, her forehead nearly touching mine. The smell of her perfume, jasmine, warm and close, wrapped around me again. I could feel the faint tremor in her body where it pressed into mine, the shallow rhythm of her breath brushing my cheek. "God, you're making this impossible," she said, her voice breaking into something more fragile than she'd intended. I let my hand rise, hesitating only a second before brushing her hair back behind her ear. My fingers grazed her skin, and she shivered under the touch. "Then stop me," I whispered, though neither of us moved. Her eyes flicked to my mouth, and I felt the pull in my chest like gravity itself had tilted. I leaned in, slow, giving her every chance to retreat. But she didn't. Her lips hovered a breath away from mine, the heat of them tangible, the space between us shrinking to nothing. And then, a sharp knock rattled her door. She froze, eyes widening, breath caught between us. The knock came again, louder this time. A man's voice called through the door. "Hey, you home? Thought I'd drop those papers off." She pulled back instantly, though her hand lingered on my chest, as if torn between shoving me away and clinging tighter. We stood locked in silence, hearts racing, the taste of what almost happened still burning between us. Her lips parted, words spilling out before she could catch them. I shouldn't want this. But she did, and we both knew it. The knock at her door faded, footsteps receding down the hall. Silence settled again, heavier than before. She didn't look at me right away. Her arms wrapped around herself, as if to keep something in place. Then, after a long pause, she whispered, "That was my ex." The words hit harder than I expected. "Ex-husband." Her eyes flicked toward mine, then away. "No, ex-neighbor." She gave a humorless laugh. "If you can call someone that." The weight behind it was sharp, more than casual history. She stepped back, pacing a short line in front of the curtain, her fingers dragging along the wall as if the contact steadied her. "He still checks in," she said finally. "Shows up. Like tonight. Sometimes I let him. Sometimes I don't." I felt a heat rise in my chest, jealousy, sharp and uninvited. I hated how quickly it came, how raw it felt. "Does he think—" I stopped, jaw tightening. "Does he think you're still his?" Her silence was an answer. I took a step closer. "And you?" Her shoulders stiffened. She turned, eyes flashing, as though my question cut too deep. "I told you I shouldn't want this." "You're—" Her voice faltered. She pressed her lips together, breath shaking out of her. "You're not what I planned for." The space between us charged again, but different this time, riskier, as if the shadows themselves were watching. I closed the distance, slowly, carefully, until I was right in front of her. My hand brushed against hers, tentative, waiting for her to pull away. She didn't. Her fingers twitched, trembling slightly, then settled against mine. "You could tell me to leave," I said, softer now. "And I would." Her grip tightened almost imperceptibly, betraying her words before she spoke. "I should. God, I should." I raised my free hand, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. She shivered beneath the touch, closing her eyes as if the world beyond her apartment had vanished. "I don't want to be a mistake you regret," I whispered. Her eyes opened, locking on mine. Raw, unguarded. Maybe I already regret not doing this sooner. The confession sliced the air between us. I leaned in, not fully, just enough that my breath mixed with hers. Every nerve screamed to close the distance, to end the ache. Her body swayed forward unconsciously, a magnetic pull she couldn't hide. And then she stepped back, breaking the contact, pressing a hand to her forehead. "This changes everything," she murmured. "If he saw you here, if anyone knew." Her words trembled, but the flush in her cheeks, the quick rise and fall of her chest, betrayed her restraint. "I moved with instinct, not thought." "Then let it change everything." She froze, caught between fear and something deeper. Her lips parted as though to argue, but instead, she whispered, "Stay." One word, quiet but irreversible. The word echoed between us, quiet but irreversible. She said it like a secret, like something she wasn't supposed to admit. I didn't move at first. My chest tightened, waiting for her to take it back, to laugh it off, to undo it. But she didn't. She just stood there, her hand still pressed against her forehead, her other arm hanging loose at her side, trembling faintly. I stepped toward her, slowly, giving her the chance to change her mind. She didn't. The air thickened as I closed the distance. My hand found hers again, and this time her fingers curled into mine without hesitation. She exhaled a long, uneven breath, her shoulders dropping as if she'd been holding something heavy inside for too long. "You don't know what you're asking for," she whispered, her voice so close I felt it against my skin. "I know enough," I murmured back. "I know I don't want to walk away." Her eyes flicked up to mine, wide, searching, almost desperate. The kind of look that asks for permission even while begging for denial. She reached up, her hand grazing my jaw, tracing the line of my cheekbone. Her touch was unsteady, like she couldn't decide if she was pulling me closer or pushing me away. I leaned in, my lips brushing the corner of her mouth, but not fully taking it. The restraint was unbearable, every second stretching thin, my heartbeat thudding in my ears. Her body tilted forward, almost imperceptibly, but enough that I felt the press of her against me. Warmth, fragile, unspoken want. "Tell me to stop," I whispered, voice breaking on the edge. Her hand slid to the back of my neck, her fingers tightening just enough to answer. "I can't," she breathed, and then the distance was gone. Her lips met mine, not polished, not perfect, but raw, trembling, urgent. A kiss that wasn't careful anymore, that wasn't asking questions but answering them all at once. The world outside the curtain fell away. There was only the heat of her mouth, the shaky rise of her breath against mine, the way her body leaned fully into me now, as if surrendering to gravity itself. When we finally broke apart, it wasn't with relief. It was with the kind of stunned silence that comes after something irreversible. Her forehead rested against mine, her breath uneven, her hand still tangled in my hair. "This can't be undone," she whispered. "I don't want it to be," I said, steady this time, certain. She closed her eyes, and for the first time since I'd known her, her expression was unguarded, vulnerable but clear. The curtains stayed drawn, and in that dim, quiet room, we finally understood. Whatever came next, neither of us could pretend anymore. We stayed close, neither of us speaking. Her hand was still tangled in my hair, mine resting against her back, holding her as though she might vanish if I let go. After a long moment, she drew in a shaky breath. "I've spent years building walls," she whispered, "and you just walked in and ignored them." I brushed my thumb across her knuckles where our hands had laced together. "Maybe they weren't meant to last." She gave a quiet laugh, not mocking, but soft, as if the sound surprised her. "You make it sound so easy." "It isn't," I admitted. My voice wavered. "I know people will talk. I know you're scared. I'm scared too." Her eyes lifted to mine, searching, questioning. I didn't look away. The silence between us shifted, no longer sharp with hesitation, but full of something steadier. She leaned in, pressing her forehead against mine, closing her eyes. The small gesture, simple, almost shy, felt more intimate than the kiss had. Her body softened into mine, and I held her tighter. Not possessive, not desperate. Just there, just present. "I thought I was too old to start again," she murmured against my skin. I smiled, the words slipping out before I could stop them. "Then let me prove you wrong." Her lips curved, barely, against my cheek. She didn't argue. She didn't retreat. We sank onto the couch, side by side, our shoulders brushing, her hand still in mine. She didn't let go this time. Her head tilted, resting lightly against me, and I turned just enough to press a gentle kiss in her hair. The city hummed outside, muted by the drawn curtain, but here inside the room, everything felt different. Quieter, safe. The doubts didn't disappear. They hung there, real and unfinished. But for once, neither of us needed to push them away. We could live in this moment, hand in hand, breaths matching, hearts slowing into rhythm. No more running. No more hiding. She whispered, almost too faint to hear, "Stay with me tonight." Not because of what people think, not because of loneliness, just because you want to. I turned, meeting her eyes again. Ido. And with that, the last of the walls between us gave way. Her smile was small, unsteady, but real. I wrapped my arm around her, pulling her close. She rested there, fitting against me like she always had, as though the waiting had been for this. We didn't need more words. The quiet said enough. The curtains stayed closed. But in the dim, warm room, something opened, something we both knew we couldn't take back and didn't want to. Together at last. Sparkles, did you enjoy the story? Speech Balloon, what kind of stories would you like to hear next?